Molly Bloom is back. You rocked my world.
I froze my eggs at 36.
Wow.
I was a freedom junkie.
So what happened the first time?
It's a coin toss.
I think many of those times people they throw in the towel.
You sort of have to let it break you and remake you. So you inject yourself with all these hormones. You feel absolutely insane.
And it was a trip.
It would have happened no matter what.
I mean, that's a book in itself. One of my personal favorite podcast guests, Molly Bloom, is back on the show. And when someone asks me, which episode should I start with? I'm like, Molly Bloom. You rocked my world when you were on the mic last time.
Our world.
I was like, and I look back and watch my face in that episode and I'm just like, your storytelling is like nothing I've ever seen. So if you guys have not listened to that episode, go run.
They did happen to make a Hollywood blockbuster movie off of her life. So
true.
The podcast was better than the movie, right? But keep going.
I want to go back to where we left off.
Okay.
With you. You told the story of everything that happened to you, but we didn't get to tell the chapter that you were in at the moment.
Okay.
So what was that chapter that was happening while we recorded that episode?
So I froze my eggs at 36. And I did it at an extremely reputable place. And we had a good result. And the fertility doctor was like, "You're good," you know? And so I just kind of thought I had time, and I thought that I could put my life together. And obviously I ideally wanted to meet someone who I felt was going to be a good parent. And I did that at 40. And around 41, we decided to fertilize the eggs, and none of them worked. And so, you know, I think this is an important conversation in itself, how much people are overselling, how much clinics are overselling the egg freezing success. And now we're starting to see results. This is not to suggest people shouldn't do it. It's just to make sure that you're doing your own research. You're not just listening to a doctor who stands to make a lot of money from sort of like a little effort. And so, you know, then I went to get my fertility measures checked, which I think everyone should do over the age of even 30. And it's a blood test, and it's an ultrasound to look at follicles. And my fertility was dismal. And the doctors said, you know, I think you should, we'll try around, but my gut is telling me that you should look at donor egg or adoption. And so we did a round, didn't get much. And then he said, you know, let's start to go in a different direction. And I was like thinking to myself, if I had only tried once at everything that was important to me, right? Like, I would have done nothing, right? And this was maybe the most important thing. So I did all this research, and I left sort of no stone unturned. I did Chinese medicine. I was cooking these herbs in this crazy pot and traveling with them, and taking the supplements that I read about. And then I did a lot of research and found out that it's really the labs and the embryologists that are going to kind of determine your fate. I mean, the protocols are all kind of the same, but it's really these people and these centers that can handle this very fragile piece of biology, right? And so I did all that research. I found that, one of the most reputable clinics was in Denver, so I was flying back and forth. I did 9 rounds.
Holy shit.
And I want people to understand what that looks like on a day-to-day basis,
okay,
on your weight, bloating, hormones, emotions, relationships. Like, it is, that 9 rounds is not a fucking joke.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And it was a huge lesson to me, because I have always had this sort of idea, I can handle anything, right? Like, whatever, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And so day to day, you are, first of all, paying a lot of money each round. And so, you're already kind of like stressed about that. You're injecting yourself with medications that cost like $15,000. And what you're doing is you're stimulating your body. Normally in a woman's cycle, 1 egg is produced. You're trying to get as many as possible. So you're jacking your hormones up to like this crazy degree. I was 30 pounds heavier, 30. For the first 4 rounds, I kind of kept it together in terms of like sanity and optimism. And, what was happening was I was getting more embryos. So all the sort of interventions that I did, the Chinese medicine, the meditation around it, the supplements, they really did work. And a lot of fertility specialists will tell you that you can't improve your egg quality or your egg count. And I absolutely stand here and completely disagree with that.
You saw it happening.
I saw it happen. I changed my nutrition, and my results were like, I was getting like 1 to 2 eggs. I started getting like 11.
Wow. Now,
I'm 41 at the time. So 10% of my eggs are chromosomally normal. 90%, this is what, the science is, 90% are not. So this is what saved me. If I had a shred of sanity left, this is what saved me. I did the math. I'm going to have, if I want 2 viable embryos, I'm going to have to test 20 of them, right?
You and I could have been in Molly's game with you, but you would have had to do the math. Can you explain that math to me?
She's
she's telling me she did the math.
She's giving you the percentages of the success rates.
I know, but so what you're saying is, I don't understand what you just said. You're saying like, saying
she knew she had to get X amount of eggs for statistically be possible for her to get the results she wanted.
Right, because 90% of a woman's eggs, and this varies. This is just the sort of like the average. 90% of your eggs by the time you're 41 are chromosomally abnormal.
Got it.
You have 10% that feasibly are normal. So if you want to get 1 good embryo, you have to test 10, right?
And when you were doing it, how many embryos that were healthy were you getting each time?
None.
Wow.
So what you're saying is she need say you okay, I need 100 and then I'd have 10 good ones statistically.
Right, exactly.
So she's saying 20, she'd have 2 good ones statistically.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
And
let's make sure you're not in charge of the family finances.
I do other things.
By the way, it's so funny because in high school, I sucked at math.
You became pretty good.
Well, because there was such an upside, which,
I find that in most things.
Yeah, right.
I agree, right? Like until you become really interested in something.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason to be.
Right.
Most people write things off.
Right.
So did you kind of know before you went into this that you would have to do it around 9 times? Or when you're in your 4th time and you're feeling like the way you said it kind of switched, did you know you had to do 9 times?
I had this sort of this probability structure in my mind. So I was like, as long as the math is working, I can keep doing this. And so I think on my 5th round, we got 1 normal. But that was, so you inject yourself with all these hormones. You feel absolutely insane. I have a friend who said that she traveled internationally and then she did IVF and she thought that she had gotten rabies from traveling because that's how just crazy you feel inside. And so I got, finally, we got a normal one. Now, so you're injecting yourself with all these hormones, then you do an egg retrieval, then you fertilize the egg and they call you and tell you how many fertilized, and then they try to grow the egg into an embryo, which means the cells have to keep dividing and multiplying. Each call is, there's this massive attrition rate. There's this okay, now we have this many. But I was getting to the point where I'd have 6 or 7 viable embryos. Then you wait 10 days for the the genetics to come back. And they'd be like, all 7 of them are chromosomally abnormal, So anyway, finally we got a normal. And then now you have to deal with the odds of a transfer. At my age, blah, 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 it's 50-50. It's a coin toss.
And this is now a transfer, because I know there's 2 different things. There's like a turkey baster situation,
Yes.
for lack of a better word.
Yes.
And then there's where they you do all these hormones, right? Which one did you do?
So you do all the hormones in order to stimulate your body to create more eggs per cycle. So most of the time you have one egg per cycle. Think about the amount of energy, the amount of sort of the symptoms you have. It's times 10, 20, because they're stimulating your body to create as many eggs as possible, so that when they go to extract them, they have as many as possible to work with. And obviously it's a process that happens in a lab, so you have to figure that in. And then when you get a good embryo, then it's time for transfer. More hormones. Sometimes you gotta take this, take something to put your body temporarily into menopause. I mean, it's an intense process. And then they basically, put the little embryo, they bring it out of cryo-freeze. They put the little microscopic embryo into this tube, and then they shoot it in, and you hope that it holds on.
So what happened the first time?
She held on.
It worked.
Mm-hmm.
So after 9 rounds,
Mm-hmm.
the first time that you put it in, it worked.
It did.
What was that like? After all you'd went through, then it worked.
It was terrifying.
Wow, because you were worried that something would happen.
For sure.
That's so wild. You think that I thought you were going to say you're so happy, but that makes total sense. You're terrified.
Of course, when I got the call, I fell to my knees and I was, overjoyed. But you've had so much bad news. You've had so much negativity. And for me, it was the bottom of the 9th. I'm 41 years old. It took me 9 rounds to get 2 embryos. This is it. And so, and simultaneously, I had started to realize that my husband I didn't have those feelings for him anymore. I loved him as a human being. I had a massive amount of respect for him, but I didn't feel romantic about him anymore. I mean, it had changed.
Do you think that had to do with and you obviously could speak more eloquently on this, of the way that he showed up for you while you were going through those rounds, or is that nothing to do with it?
I think that it would have happened no matter what. We were in very different places in life. And I met him right around when the movie was coming out, and I had never heard a man who's good looking and whatever speak about principles and character and women with this level of reverence. I had spent my days in poker rooms,
with some characters.
And the dialogue about women was...
I relate to you on the smallest little level. I was a bartender, and I always, and these rich, powerful men would come in Rancho Santa Fe, and I'd really be able to hear the real conversation.
For sure.
And I always said that I felt like a picture on the wall.
Yeah.
It's I wasn't even there.
Right.
I was just more of a fixture.
Right.
And they were really saying their real things in front of me. And it was a fucking trip.
Yeah.
It was I look at it as for me, I love it. I look at it like a really positive thing, because it gave me all these, it's kind of like a focus group. It's like data that I wouldn't have had access
For sure.
to. But I can only imagine what you heard.
Right.
That's a book in itself.
Yeah. That I will never write.
Don't worry, secret's safe.
Yeah.
Guys. So when you met as someone that is all these qualities, you instantly fell in love with him.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't really project what it would mean to be with someone who was, for instance, 10 years younger, has had completely different life experience. As terrified as I used to wake up every night in the middle of the night just to make sure I wasn't having a miscarriage, like I was scared. It's kind of like when I see the truth about something, I can't just hang out. Like I knew it was that part of our relationship was over. And I also knew that when this little girl came into the world, I wanted to have our shit figured out. And so at 2 months pregnant, I, sat down with him and had this tough conversation. And he's an incredible human being who is so able to, bench his ego and to really look at the bigger picture. And we spent 48 hours kind of with each other, grieving, crying. And then I moved. We were on the East Coast because he was finishing his PhD in neuroscience. And then I moved back to Colorado and basically spent most of my pregnancy alone or traveling and speaking, which is a trip getting, because everyone's like expecting like Molly's game, badass. And I'm like waddling up there pregnant, like, what's up, everyone, But it was a very challenging time. And then, every checkup, I was sure that they were going to tell me no heartbeat and then she was born. And it was such a profound experience. And I just had this thought, like, why did I think anything ever mattered before this, And then the real terror took over because vulnerability is not my strong suit. Being exposed to the world, my whole life I've tried to be strategic and try to control my environment and have as much information as I can, and also try to fortify myself so that when bad things happen, I can get through it. And all of a sudden, I know now there is no safety because I love this child so much that if something happened, I just didn't know how to deal with it. It was the most vulnerable and sort of exposed I'd ever felt. But it was such a good lesson because I think over the years, I had been brave in other places, but I hadn't been brave in relationships. I'd always had that armor on. I never wanted to lose control. And so as a byproduct, I don't think I really had true intimate relationships where I really opened myself up. And Fiona changed that. I mean, I had no choice. I couldn't logically come up with a plan to be okay if something happened to her.
For longtime listeners of this show, it might feel like Groundhog Day because I cannot stop talking about AG1. I have been taking AG1 for close to 8 years now, ever since we learned about the product. And what I love so much about AG1 is it's become an absolute staple in our morning routine. AG1 actually reminds me that I need to hydrate more properly. I know that sounds strange, but I have a little bit of a ritual where I get the AG1, I put a big scoop in a heaping glass of water. What I love about it the most is I get all my multivitamins, I get my adaptogens, I get my greens all in one powerful scoop. It gives me energy. It gives me focus. It just makes me feel great first thing in the morning. And we recently hosted Kat Cole, the COO of AG1, on the show to dive even deeper into all the things they do as a company. I don't know how many times at this point they've reiterated the formula and continued to improve it, but this company is committed to constantly making a better product. And they're so focused on just doing one thing so well, which Lauren and I appreciate so much. And like I mentioned earlier, it supports my entire body and covers my nutritional basis every single day. It tastes great. It's easy. It's drinkable habit with our busy lifestyles. And we can take it anytime we travel. We're on the go. It just fits our lifestyle so nicely. If there was only one supplement I was going to invest in, it would be AG1 because it covers so many different bases. As you guys know, we're always looking for high quality products. That's why we've partnered with AG1 for so long. So if you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/skinny. That's drinkag1.com/skinny. Check it out. Who doesn't want a better environment to live in? Who doesn't want to have better hormone regulations? Who doesn't want to have a chemical-free household? This is why I love talking about Branch Basics so much. For the non-believers out there, I was a non-believer myself. Lauren introduced me to this brand, Branch Basics, and then we had their founder, Allison, on the show talking all about cleaning up the home supplies in the house. So many of us grew up with these nostalgic brands that have all of these fragrances and hormone disruptors and harmful preservatives that wreak havoc on our health in their cleaning supplies, and they're just completely unaware of it. Ever since Lauren and I have got those out of the house and started using Branch Basics for basically all of our cleaning supplies in the house, our lives have absolutely changed. Their premium starter kit replaces all of your harmful cleaning products in the home, and Branch Basics now has a new luxurious gel hand soap made with only the safest ingredients to nourish your skin. I'm a firm believer that if you can make better choices, why would you not? And Branch Basics is definitely that better choice. Like I said, you don't want harmful chemical supplies in your cleaning supplies, in your household that you're breathing in every day. Your pets are breathing it, your kids are breathing it, you're breathing it. So implement better change with Branch Basics. Of course, we have a special offer for our listeners. Save 15% on your starter kit or their new hand soap when you use code SKINNY at www.branchbasics.com. Again, that is code SKINNY for 15% off when you purchase a starter kit or their new gel hand soap. www.branchbasics.com. Again, that is code SKINNY for 15% off when you purchase a starter kit or their new gel hand soap. Branchbasics.com, promo code SKINNY. There are so many decisions that one can make when it comes to making financial decisions. One of the most important decisions you can make is which credit card you decide to use. I know personally, I want to get the best credit card that's going to fit my needs and give me the best benefit back. There's so many different options. And what I love is that NerdWallet lets you compare top travel credit cards side by side to maximize your spending, some even offering 10x points on your spending. So what could future you do with better rewards, a free flight, room upgrades, cash back? Which reward system makes the most sense for you? NerdWallet will help you figure that out. Compare and find smarter credit cards, savings accounts, and more today at nerdwallet.com. NerdWallet, finance smarter. Reminder, credit is subject to lender approval and terms apply.
I think when you're very comfortable with your masculine side as a woman, it's really hard to become a mother because
For sure.
you're like, wait, I don't know how to access this femininity like right away. It's weird. I relate to what you're saying 100%. I totally understand. It almost takes a while to like wrap your head around the exposed feeling that you're talking about.
For sure.
I sometimes view it too as people that have had trauma. It's like a defense mechanism because you've been able to wall off your emotions for so long, and you can't do that as a parent.
No.
Or you could, I guess, but you shouldn't do that as a parent.
Right. You become acutely aware that any of your maladaptive coping strategies or defense mechanisms or neurosis need to be resolved. Otherwise, that's what this kid's gonna see modeled.
Well, they reflect it to you too. Like if you're doing something that is not, I don't know, motherly, they'll reflect it to you. And it's a wild thing. It's wild.
It is. And the other thing, and maybe both of you will relate to this, I was a freedom junkie. I wanted to live life on my own terms. I wanted to make my own rules. If things got stale, I wanted to be able to, go.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize that's not possible anymore.
My dad said, like, the longer a man stays single, the harder it is for him to get in a relationship. And I could imagine the same for a woman. The longer you take to wait to have kids, it's like you're so set in your ways because it's been, instead of some people have kids at 21, instead of 21 years, it's been an extra 20 years. So you're even more set in your ways.
We just went on a vacation with a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
And it was fun. But we're all standing around, and now a lot of us have kids, but this was a no kids trip.
Okay.
And like at the end of it, it was like kind of a mourning phase. We were like, it's just kind of over. Like you can't.
Like the bender.
You can't, there's just things you can't do anymore. And I think a lot of people that don't have kids or maybe even do have a really difficult time fathoming that. Like,
sure.
there's like, I saw this stand-up comedian talking and he's saying, oh, do you think it's hard having kids? What do you do when you leave the house? Most people without kids, they leave the house.
Yeah.
With the kids, like, where's the shoes? Where's this? Where's the lunchbox? Like, the car seat. It's like, but it is the most rewarding process in the world. That you have to make peace with a certain part of you is dead and gone.
You sort of have to let it break you and remake you.
Yep.
But, then now I have this little baby that, you have that feeling like if I'm not vigilant, if I'm not there, they're not going to stay alive. Like,
right.
You have that as a mother. I feel like my amygdala grew like 20 times the size, And so I have these fears, and Devon's on the East Coast and I have to start working 3 weeks after she's born.
Oh.
So I have to leave this little like center of my universe that I'm so afraid that something's going to happen. And cause I'm her financial support.
Yeah.
And I was breastfeeding. I breastfed for 14 months. I would fly to Australia for one day, pump, come back, drop off milk. And I was just probably doing that a lot to, deal with the guilt that you have. But eventually that sort of loneliness of being a single parent, and I had help. I don't want to minimize that. My mom moved down the street, I had nannies and everything, but at some point everyone goes home, and you're alone with this baby. And it doesn't feel good. And so all of these factors, like the crazy travel schedule, the overwhelming sort of anxiety you feel about having this kid, ultimately, I got to a place that I've never been to in which my mind and body just was done. Like it was such intense burnout and such intense depression that I didn't know what to do, because I can't stop working and I can't stop showing up for my kid. So it was this just extremely challenging time. And, I don't think parents and moms especially get enough respect. And I am here to tell you that I made the US ski team with a reconstructed spine. I ran the biggest poker games in the world. I was beaten up by the Italian mob. I dealt with the Russian mob. I stood up to the United States government. I got $9 million seized, found my life in ruination, and had to sort of battle back. And I will tell you that being a parent is so much harder than any of that stuff. And I want to give a voice to that. Because I think sometimes the role is minimized, and it's like there's this reductive sort of idea of mom sitting around drinking Pinot Grigio, and it is hard, and it is something that you can't quit. You can't take a day off. You can't go somewhere and just you can't go to a spa. But then Devon finished his PhD a couple months ago, and he moved back and he moved in with us.
How's that going?
My ex lives in my basement.
Modern
I love
family,
it.
modern family.
And I'm always like, you need to find us a wife.
If you and I divorced, you can move in my basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could still use a helping hand.
No, it's amazing. My life is so different now.
Can I have carte blanche over the basement design?
No.
Okay. Deal breaker.
Meanwhile, he wanted the basement because he wanted his own space.
Yeah.
And for 4 months, he's slept in the day bed in our daughter's room.
Oh, so cute.
And
but you guys are just friends.
We are best friends. He's the dad that like every little girl would want. Like she is the center of his universe. He's done so much work on himself. He's been sober since he was 23, and really involved in that community. So always looking at himself, always looking at ways to improve. A real deep understanding from not only his neuroscience education, but also like helping other people with addiction. So like a really profound understanding of how to use emotions skillfully. And, he's just, I would love to have like what you guys have, that's the dream. But this is a close second.
You know what? I was telling my friend though, what we've known each other since we were 12.
I know.
It's so like niche. Like I don't want anyone to look at us and think that, because it's
well, it's not lost on us that I guess what we have is rare.
It's
right?
very rare.
It's really rare, but I don't think anyone should compare that.
I don't say that to be like, oh, I say it. We're very careful to give a ton of relationship advice that's not somewhat broad, because our relationship is unique. And I think sometimes people will view it from the outside and be like, wow, this looks like the most dysfunctional thing ever. But I always say, like, imagine you've known somebody for 30 years. Like, there's a lot of things that really work about it. And a lot of things that I would not tell anyone else to do. Like, most couples should not work together.
Right.
Most couples should not co-host a show together.
Right.
Most couples maybe shouldn't know each other since they were kids. Like, there's pros and cons. And so I just think every individual's unique, but I've also seen people get together much later that have had the greatest love stories.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's I think it just, sometimes people try to force it.
Everything's happening for you though. You're going to find someone that fits into your puzzle.
But what's more common, and I guess my thought process here was what's more common is somebody will be in the situation you were previously in and know it's not right and stay in it.
Yeah.
Right.
For the sake of whatever somebody told them,
Or safety.
Yeah, or safety.
Right.
And then they take a large portion of their life not living as happy as they should be.
Right.
Right. So I don't know. I guess that's my point.
Yeah. Well, I think you should also give yourself more credit, because from the outside, like, you guys have known each other for so long, you've built this business together. There has to be a lot of work you do.
I think we're both, and I don't want to speak for Lauren, but I guess I am speaking of her. We're committed. We're committed to doing, I guess, some things that maybe many others won't do when things get really bad. Like, we were on the plane going back and we were talking to a group of our friends. We were talking about like the worst times in our relationship. And I think many of those times people like, they throw in the towel.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And I think we're both like, okay, we're not going to throw in the towel.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And I mean, I think it's like beautiful to see what you have built and to see and to have that kind of history with someone. And yeah, like, a lot of people can't replicate that, but it's a great love story.
Thank you. Let's see how it ends. I'm just
not over yet.
Oh, YouTube's going to love that. They say like, does she hate her husband? I'm like,
Da,
no,
da, da.
I love my husband.
Why?
It's our banter. If I can't have fun with my husband,
of course.
put me down.
All right.
Like old Yeller me.
I know. I mean, there's like this quote from this Aldous Huxley book, and it just talks about living a bit lighter,
Yeah.
Feeling lighter, taking everything a little bit less seriously. And
well, the type of women that I'm attracted to in my life, and this is my friends too.
Right.
It's like, I like a very strong, brash woman.
Yeah.
That's why he loved having you on the show.
But yeah. But if you look at the women I surround myself with in my personal life, they're all like ball busting women, tough. Like, my mom's that.
I was just going to say, you must have had
oh my God, my dad
his
is
mom
badass
is like you. She's
and so I think like,
she's wearing this like the suit like you. She's like, she's a boss.
I'll just
she's
be
like,
honest. Like, some women are dating these guys that if you say one thing wrong about him, the guy loses his shit and goes into a tailspin. And they're like, I can't believe your wife would talk like this. I'm like, listen, tell your husband to grow a pair and not be so offended.
No, everyone to each its own.
Yeah, she's trying to muffle me now, but that's,
I think going back to what you said about parenting, why it's so hard out of all those things you've been through is there's no gauge on it. Like with the law, you could say black or white, but with parenting, like if you do something that you perceive to be really smart, you still are questioning yourself. You still don't know if it's the right thing.
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, if I'm like, I'm going to put my kid in school and then I get all this shit on Instagram, like homeschool, it's like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like it's like you never know if you're doing the right thing. That's what's hard about it.
And that's why I think it's so important to try to re-village to some degree, because we are not meant to raise kids by ourselves. We're meant to like learn from our elders and learn from a community. And the more and more sort of isolated people get and parents get, I think the more unhealthy culturally we get. And so, you know, I think it would be a really cool thing to take on, to try to create community and resources and a more accepting environment. Like you have to build a culture in which it's okay to sleep train. It's also okay not to sleep train, right?
It's okay to co-sleep.
Right.
It's all different.
Both of these things can be true simultaneously. Right. And it's so interesting because I just talked to Annie Duke. Do you know who she is?
I know who she is.
Yeah.
We've never met her.
You should have her on. She is so brilliant and so fascinating. So I was talking to her because I was interviewing her for my new book. And she was one of the most prolific female poker players, and she won a ton of money. And so now what she does is she teaches people how to make good decisions. And humans are really bad at making good decisions because they trust their gut, and the gut is sometimes it's on, but most of the time it's very error-ridden, you know? But so I was asking her, because we were talking about tribalism and how this country has gotten, like almost tribal politics. And she said, people love to identify with a position because it satisfies two really deep human needs: to be distinctive and to be part of something. And so I said, well, what's the solution, And she said, what I do with the companies that I consult in is we make like our culture this open-minded, non-binary, like not black and white, nuanced perspective on life, right? It's okay to, like sleep train. It's also okay not to sleep train. And then she says what happens is then it satisfies the distinctiveness and the part of being a tribe, because you're like, I'm an open-minded thinker. I'm accepting of all positions. And that's what I pride myself in. And that's like, what I identify with. And
imagine if everyone was an open-minded thinker. Can you imagine that?
Well, I'm writing this book on affective presence, which is the science of how you make people feel. So how people feel, what kind of emotions people have in your presence. And there's some people that have negative affective presence, and there are those people, like there are the people where everyone's like, oh my God, and like they walk in the room and everyone's like, oh God. And there's this thing, emotional contagion. So the sort of happiness degree goes down. And what's so important about understanding this is people make decisions mostly with their emotions. And so even if you're the less qualified candidate, if you know how to invoke positive emotions from people, if you know how to make somebody feel seen and, listen to them and find, fascination in their life, there's this data that shows those people do better in every situation, even if they're less qualified. And so one of the worst offenders, one of the things that causes the most negative affective presence is people who are inflexible and deeply opinionated. The thing is that these people, this is not malicious behavior. They're passionate, right?
Yep.
They're very passionate about their position, and it doesn't mean they have to abandon their position. It just means that they have to allow other people to have a different perspective.
The problem with people like that, though, is if they attach that to their identity, it shatters their identity.
That's right.
And their ego.
Yeah. And what I do, like, it's so funny to me because we will have people on this show. Let's just use a political example. We have people that have very right-leaning views and very left-leaning views. And I try to tell this to the company all the time. Carson's been in those meetings. And I say, sometimes you're going to hear perspectives that you don't get. And if that perspective shatters you that much, there's work you need to do on yourself.
Right.
Right. For me, like, I want to understand why somebody came to one conclusion and somebody living in the same world came to a different conclusion.
Right.
Because that's going to help me as a person try to develop my own thought patterns so that I can understand something better. Where if I just like blanketly accept what everybody's saying on one side or another side, then there's really no point for me to think at all.
Right.
I might as well just pick whatever group I feel better with. I'm just going to do that and mindlessly run around like a drone.
Right. And let's establish, Lauren, Michael, and Molly aren't saying you shouldn't be opinionated.
Sure.
And this is science,
Yeah,
right? This is what the science is saying. So it doesn't mean that you don't have strong views and that you don't like go out and protest or get involved with those views. It just means that you allow other people to have their views. And at this point in our country, I don't know if anything is more important than, sort of having people like tolerate different views and stop hating each other and literally like wanting to harm each other for those different views.
You may have heard me talk about my daily non-negotiables on past episodes, one of which is a morning walk with my son. So after I wake up, I try to make the bed, I hydrate with an electrolyte water, and I do my quick wellness and skincare routine. I make my kids breakfast. Then my son and I go outside for a walk. So he's in the stroller and I'm doing a walking meditation. We get in our morning light and movement in, and we love it. It's like a habit stack if I've ever seen one. And during those morning walks, I'm wearing Nike, specifically my Indie bra and my Nike Motiva walking shoes. The bra is so supportive. In fact, it comes in different support levels, so you can get like low, medium, or high support depending on the size of your boobs or preference. Plus, the bra has adjustable straps and is so comfortable. Nike's Motiva walking shoes are smooth, they're cushioned, they're comfortable, they're great for like a daily walk. And what I like about them is they give you optimum support for every move every day. I have plantar fasciitis, and these are amazing for that. Both the Indie bra and the Nike Motivas are the move. The Indie bra just sculpts your body in a perfect way. I feel like we've been talking a lot lately about tailored, well-fitting clothes, and this is it when it comes to athletic wear. Another thing that I love is they're both so durable. So you're getting high-quality, flattering apparel that you can wash and wear over and over again. You'll just keep reaching for these staples just like me. Shop now at Nike.com. Again, that's Nike.com.
You guys know that Lauren and I love trying to be the best version of ourselves, getting into the best headspace. And now we're so excited to talk to you about Superhuman, which are activations in audio format, and audio obviously we love, that help you reach your highest potential. Their activations are groundbreaking. It's a new type of audio. They're not meditations, to be clear, and they're more energizing and specifically designed to transform you into your future self. What I love about these things is you can take them on a walk. You can listen to them while you're doing something else. It's a great way to multitask and also get into the right headspace. Lauren and I recently had Mimi Bouchard on the show, who's a founder of Superhuman, to talk all about the benefits of using and implementing activations into your daily life. What I love about the application is you can tailor it to your specific needs. So whether you want to feel more energized, whether you want to get a little bit more motivation in the day, if you want to get clarity around something that you've been working on, or you just want something that's transformative, they have something for you. The app is really versatile and has something for everyone. So let me give you some examples of how you can use these activations. Maybe you want to earn a little bit more money. Maybe you want to get a little healthier. You want to get fitter. You want to get happier. These applications will be one of the best tools in your toolbox to help you get there. And it's way easier to implement into your routine and far more effective than any other audio app out there. Don't miss out on this crazy deal. They rarely do discounts, almost never. On top of the 14-day free trial, get over 60% off your subscription for a limited time only at activations.com/skinny. There's literally no risk. If you change your mind and forget to cancel after the trial, you're covered by their money-back guarantee. The offer is only available through their website, not the App Store. That's activations.com/skinny for over 60% off. And this offer expires soon, so act fast. Again, activations.com/skinny. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your own terms. I cannot say enough how important it is for you to own your own brand, your own online presence, your own channels. This is why I'm so hesitant to rely on only third parties like social apps that you don't control, that you have no say in, where you're constantly worried about an algorithm and where you honestly have no ownership other than renting the channel that you're using from them. Lauren and I have been building our own channels online since the early days. We own our own websites, our own blogs, our own e-commerce channels. Even this podcast is owned on our own RSS feed. This is why I love Squarespace so much. It lets you own your own content, your own channel. So if you're somebody that's been thinking about building an online brand and you don't know where to start with Squarespace. If you want to build a website or a blog where you speak to your community, that's a great place to start. If you want to build an e-com channel where you sell your products online, start with Squarespace. If you want to build a newsletter and manage all of your clients and contacts there, that's where you're going to want to do it as well. And like I said, it's so important to build on a platform that lets you own your own content and own your own channels. And of course, we have an offer just for our listeners. Head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to www.squarespace.com/skinny to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that's www.squarespace.com/skinny to save 10% off your first purchase. I look at it this way, like say that all three of us found a specific diet that if we followed, we knew we would live a radiant, healthy life.
Right.
And that's like, and we become like, okay, everyone's going to do this.
Right.
But then a year from now, information comes out or a new perspective is shared. It's like, hey, actually, there's something here that if you do this, your life expectancy will be cut by 20 years. But we've attached such a strong identity to that certain diet that we thought was great that we can't move off that position. That's what people do now, but they do it with a lot of other things.
Right.
But, and I think that way of thinking is insane. And I think it's also a bit of a new way of thinking where, you know, growing up, you didn't have these dug in groups and positions. Everyone's kind of like, okay, like I got this side or that side or this person or that, but like you're willing to move off ideas.
Right.
And I think social media is bad in this regard because it creates these pockets of communities where people dig in and make it about their identities.
For sure. And then there's no separation. If somebody insults that diet, they're insulting you.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. When does this book come out so we can all read it? Because I think a lot of people need this book. I feel like it's going to be a real hit.
Well, I think the reason that I'm writing it is because I went back through my life and I thought about the through line. And almost everything I've taken on, I've been underqualified, an underdog, statistical improbability. And I think what the skill that is probably most prominently responsible for being able to reinvent and be successful in fields where I don't, you know, I'm a novice or whatever, is this ability to authentically connect with another person. And that's what effective presence ultimately is about. And most people are in sort of autopilot, you know, and they're going in and they're meeting people for a meeting and they're not thinking about the human experience or what's happening with this other person. And, you know, my dad, he's a psychologist and he's co-writing this book with me, which is kind of a full circle moment because
really cool.
We had a tough relationship. Yeah. But, you know, he says, when you walk into a room with someone, you're not just with them, you're with their parents and their exes and any boss that's ever fired them and this whole contingency of their history and their trauma and people that have rejected them or made them feel unworthy. And it's your job in a couple minutes to let them know that you're not with them, that you really authentically, want to get to know this person and think that they're worthwhile. And, you know, there's this, the number one salesman in the Guinness Book of World Records is this car salesman. Okay. And this was his strategy. People would walk in and start talking to him and he would say, I like you. And then every year he would send them a card saying, I really like you. Like, how are you? Like, it was so simple, and I think we try to overcomplicate things. And I think we walk in with a lot of our own social fears. And the only way to truly connect with someone is to be a bit vulnerable, not over vulnerable, right?
Right. Someone comes in and they're like telling you every detail from when they were born. They're like, it was a stormy day.
Right. Or like telling you things that like, I should know you for 10 years before you tell me that.
Right.
And I think Brené Brown talks about, vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability.
Vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability.
Right.
That's a great quote.
It is. Yeah, she's so smart and the work she does is so prolific. But it's not really a heavy lift, and it doesn't rely on there was this whole movement with EQ, which is mind-blowing research and I think so important. But with effective presence, you don't have to try to read social cues, because even for the best person who can read social cues, it's pretty error-ridden because people have a lot of shit going on.
Right.
I mean, and it's like sometimes I'll get on a stage and I'll make a speech, and it looks like everybody hates me. Like their expression is just, it's like they don't laugh at the jokes that, and then I'll get off stage and people will come up to me and they'll be emotional. And, it just shows me like trying to read people and trying to like figure that out for yourself is not the way. It's understanding how people work, doing a real inventory of, these are the factors of positive effective presence. These are the factors of negative effective presence. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And starting to work on that.
When does the book come out? Because you have to come back on the podcast and we have to do a whole episode on effective presence.
Yeah.
When does it come out?
I would love to do that. 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
It's like a
Always, right?
I would love to invite you back on and do a whole niche episode on effective presence.
I would love to do that.
In the meantime, where can everyone find you? I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will want to ask you questions because your story of everything you've gone through. I know there's a lot of people listening who are going through IVF or freezing their eggs or embryos. I'm sure they'll have questions.
Yeah. So, and I'm so happy to share everything, all my research. And the best place right now, I think, is Instagram.
Okay.
And it's I'm Molly Bloom. So I am, and then Molly Bloom.
I'm super excited for your book. I think that'll make an insane episode.
Yeah.
And I love, is that the title?
No, it's not going to be the title. I'm so bad at titles. I pick them at the very last minute.
Maybe it's like a subtitle. Effective presence is strong.
Yeah, it is. And it's effective with an A. And it's so,
cool.
There's like 2 scientific papers on it, and that's it. And one of them is on speed dating, and the other one is on, cohorts in a office setting. And I just think it's so important because I think truly connecting with people, first of all, it makes you feel amazing.
Yeah.
And then second of all, it's massively predictive of how happy you're going to be, how well your relationships go, how well you're going to do in business. And it's a learnable skill.
You're the perfect person to teach it. Molly, come back. Go
Open
listen.
invite anytime.
Open invite anytime. Go listen to the first episode with you too, you guys. If you haven't, it's one of my favorites. This one was very close to it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you for having me. You're so